Feels like a lot of force, but... Okay, well, it's all arrived and I've got those sort of excited nerves, I suppose. I'm telling myself that I'm going to enjoy today, I'm going to build this PC, but that something is going to go wrong today. It all arrived very quickly, of course, and I've got the CPU, second time I've dropped that, the motherboard, and of course the case. I've got a cooler, that's one of the most complicated parts of that liquid cooler is one thing that I'm not so sure about. I'm sure I'll manage, but we'll see. And I just need to harvest a couple of hard drives from my older PCs. And talking about this older PC, I'm gonna show you inside that in a minute because I'm not an expert. This isn't going to be an expert teaches you how to build a PC sort of video, but just you'll see what somebody who reasonably knows what they're doing but has actually never built one from scratch. I've only ever sort of modified existing PCs, and this guy down here has been my PC for about sort of 6 years and I've really enjoyed it. I've built this whole channel on this PC really. I've modified it, added bits to it, occasionally dusted it, but it's now getting to the point where it's a bit long in the tooth, let's say. And it's a bit like a Franken PC actually. But I'm very grateful my dad got me this PC, as my dad was an IT tech and he's a very generous gentleman. So this will be the sort of, you know, somebody reasonably aware of what they're doing with a computer but has never actually built one from scratch. This will be that experience really, rather than a full instruction set of how to do it yourself. And I'm going to be following along with this video here from TechSource, which, I mean, what an incredible resource these guys have put together here. And that video will take you from start to finish, covering all of the different options that you might have, whether it's AMD, Intel, all of these things. And can you see this? It's an absolute Franken PC, as I said. But not only am I deciding to build this myself, but also running the 2 cameras just adds that extra bit of jeopardy really of, yeah, maybe looking like a bit of an idiot at times. I wanted just to get this open because I'm going to borrow the M2 SSD from that, and also I have a second M2 SSD floating around here somewhere. Yeah, here it is on this little board in here with this kind of riser here because I couldn't plug this directly into the motherboard in here because the graphics card was in its way. So let's see if I can just fish those out without deconstructing the whole thing. And this thing is good. This is a i9 9900K. That's what the processor is called. Done me well, but it's a good 6 generations out of date now. You can see one of the targets that I'm going to have with building this new PC is better cable management because yeah, I've generally just put them in any old how. As I added the graphics card, extra drives, you can see I didn't have enough SATA drives for the third drive when I wanted to put a bit of extra storage in there. So I went ahead and disconnected the optical drive and I've just actually, I left the 2 terabyte drive here, just, yeah, very loosely gaffer taped in place there. So it's come apart as I've laid it on its side there. And just because the M2 storage is so much faster than the storage on a hard disk or on a SATA SSD, I've used this little extender card here into any PCIe slot. This actually may find its way into my new build in the future, but I'll leave it in here for now. So that's 4 terabytes of M.2, which is going to go into the new PC. Now, I don't want to necessarily say goodbye to this PC, but because this motherboard here is an M-ATX rather than a full-size ATX, you can see you're missing extra PCIe slots. So one thing that I did miss was when I decided I wanted to add a capture card here. Mainly one of the big uses that I've used this for recently has been live streaming. When I wanted to add a capture card, I couldn't add a HDMI capture card directly onto the motherboard and had to use external USB ones, which are a bit slower than that. You can see old school air cooling there. As I say, cables just any which way. I had to replace the power supply on this because I popped it a year or so ago. And yeah, generally it's still going to work because the operating system is on the little SSD, the SATA SSD, 2 terabytes worth there as well. And it was a 1060, so old school graphics card there. Okay, So I might put that motherboard and components back into a smaller case maybe in the future. Might just be something nice to do with that. Or I guess if you've got old components like this, you could go ahead and sell them. You'll probably get more if you were to sort of separate them all apart rather than sell it as one big PC here. And one thing that I really wanted to do was to future-proof this PC build and make sure that it was still a viable build in a good few years' time. And I think I'd do that by having something like this, which is the X870P motherboard. And one spec that I was looking for in there was Shure PCI 5.0. So that's going to go along with the latest 50 series graphics cards and the fastest drives. Also USB 4 on the back, 2 of them, as well as space for 4 NVMe drives. And so I've got a few spares that I've used for testing, and the 2 from my older PC. Should mean that I have a total of 8 gigabytes of fast storage for all of my footage and my project files, etc. And then I've got a 12 terabyte hard drive from one NAS build that I did a little while ago, which I'm going to put into the new build to be my longer term archive, really. And this one's a really good drive. This is a WD Black SN850X 7000 mega transfers, I think. I remember seeing that one. Cool, I'll put all that back together and I'll get started. I think you start on the motherboard and you build everything that you can build onto the motherboard, and then you put things in the case later. I'll link that tutorial video below, and I hope you enjoy this kind of side quest here to build this PC on my channel. I already made one mistake, but not a major one. Let's hope that's as bad as it gets. And if it all goes wrong, I'm just gonna chuck it all out the window and get myself a Commodore 64 Ultimate. I don't think I'll be doing any 4K video editing on that though. Okay, motherboard and CPU, it seems, is the first thing. And install all of the drives. I feel like I need to know before I do that, am I using a contact frame, whatever one of those is? And I guess that's about this thing, the liquid cooler. Well, they call them AIOs, which I'm not sure what that means. These AIOs seem to come in different sizes, and 360 is the sort of largest for the more powerful processors, really, just to remove as much heat as possible. And it tends to be just different numbers of fans. So the larger ones have 3 fans, but the 360, I believe, refers to the size of the actual cooling plate, I guess. So have a quick look in here. Got the cooler, the fans, but is there a contact frame? Do they actually give you any form of like instructions? Nothing that says contact frame, so I'm gonna, this is gonna go directly on. Is that thing a contact frame? So yeah, I don't think I need to install anything at this point to fit the cooler, apart from obviously the bracket behind it. Some cabling and some details. So I'm just gonna leave all the cables and things in the box for now, because that's what he told me to do on the tech source video. I'm gonna pull out the motherboard from its anti-static bag. I'm just gonna get to know with the diagram what everything is. Just to really orientate myself for the rest of this build, really. Yeah, this is now where it gets a bit serious, I suppose. The CPU now. This is an AM5 9950X. So I'm looking for the little triangle in the corner here. And I'm going to line that up with a little triangle there. So it's just the same orientation that it is now. Release the little lever. That should just come up. Hold the thing by its side. and drop it into place. Yeah, looks perfectly fine. Close this, close that, that pops off. Feels like a lot of force, but I think we're okay. There we go. So this is the PCIe 5 slot here. So this is where I'm going to put my fastest drive. And the other 3 slots are all PCIe 4.0. And I probably will put my operating system on this drive. Although people say you don't bother. I think for me, having operating system, having programs on the fastest drive probably is the option. And I'm sure, yeah, you might not get a benefit right now of having those very high PCIe 5 speeds. I think maybe in the future you might. And these guys are easy to install M.2 drives because it should just be a case of lining up notch and notch. Push it till it clicks. Didn't click that time. Push that down on there. Don't have a screw. Because that's the screw for that there, is it? And then my next fastest drive I'm going to put in this one with the heat shield already in place. I don't have any screws for these two. What I'm going to do, I've got one there, but not over here. No, there's just a hole. So was that one thing that I got inside here? Yeah, mistakes. So I should have removed the back of the heat pad on these things. I also had a little rubber slot, which is optional. Where does that go? I've only got 2. Okay, I want one in there. That one seemed okay. This one I want one for sure. And then my other 2 drives, okay. And now the DIMMs. It does say exactly which ones to use. A2's there and B2's there. Crucial DIMMs seem like a good deal. Seem to work with AMD's EXP overclocking thing. And this is 64 gigabytes, so 2 lots of 32 at 6,400, that's the fastest you're gonna get in your kind of non-soldered RAM. Okay, so open the latches. I think maybe only the top one opens on this. And then I just have to check where the notch lines up. Should be this way. And it should click into place. That's something, the last time I upgraded RAM on my Rankin PC I showed you earlier, something I got wrong actually the first time, so hopefully both of these are just going to be seated correctly. That was all it was, it didn't do any damage or anything. It just takes a little bit of force just to get them in right, doesn't it? This wasn't in until they clicked. Cool, there we go, that's most of the motherboard stuff done now. And I'm going to clear a bit of space. I'm going to take 5. Okay, kind of feels like it got a bit real just now, and we'll see a lot to sort of understand about installing this type of pump. Pretty sure I just need to take these guys off here. I'm glad though, because Intel ones you need to go from behind. They're on tight, they are. Take these temporary ones off and then place the bracket for this particular cooler on instead. Mount the radiator inside the case, we're not doing that just yet. Oh, I see. Okay, do I need to remove that bracket first? So this is just annoying because this thing's attached the whole time. Yeah, so I need to take that off first. So these fans have felt pretty complicated, but it's basically daisy chain, RGB and power all the way along. And then finally, these ones to come onto the motherboard. Do this now so I don't have to do it later. Oh yeah, there are little arrows on there that line up. Ah, now I get it. That makes sense. And then yeah, I've got these two loose ones, so that should be into these two cables, which are then going to go onto the motherboard. Right, and where do they go on the motherboard? I mean, I am not entirely sure I've got that right at all, but I know that I've got the power one in the right place. Yeah, the two power ones are in the right place, so the color can just, you know, can just forget about the RGB for now, but hopefully that's going to let me just now connect it to a bit of power and test whether the components are actually all working together. Sure, I haven't dealt with the GPU yet, but actually the GPU, I haven't got it yet. So I'm just going to now use a power supply. This is the power supply I've gone for. I did really want a 1000 watt power supply, but this was on a decent deal, and I think it should still give me enough headroom, really. Especially now that I'm not going to be using so many SATA drives like in an older PC, because it's all M.2. Most of it's coming from PCIe power, so I don't have to spin disks or anything like that. Eventually this radiator will be at the top of the case. It's going to be mounted at the top, blowing the air up, and this is going to be blowing the hot air out the top. So fingers crossed. Next thing is, as I say, just to give it a bit of power, check that the components are all sort of talking to each other correctly. Now this incidentally is the least interesting and exciting part of the whole build, of course, but surprisingly enough, MSI have provided a little carry case for all of the cables that you get in here. So this is a fully modular power supply, and modular just means that all of the power cables can be disconnected or connected. Okay, so I've got a screen, I've got the power supply here, and it's plugged in down there. I'm just starting with a 24 pin, which goes into this one, ATX meaning motherboard, and then CPU here as, oh no, it's not going into the CPU. I'll get the manual out. I've got it. It's that one there, but it's kind of, it feels like a bit of a twist. Get around to that, but there we are. It does fit, and it's ATX 24 pin. Then this goes into the motherboard. Kind of can't get them the wrong way around, so there's that little bit of reassurance there. If anyone can get something wrong, I can. So I'm told I can't mess this bit up. It seems my motherboard has two sort of CPU EPS cables, and they're both 8-pin into CPU and PCIe. I know one of these has got to be, normally it's got to be the first one, hasn't it? Okay, here goes for the test boot then. So power there, and then just using a screwdriver, I'm told, the power pin there. We have a boot. We have power. No signal, not getting a signal out, but the fans have come on. Whether everything else is coming on, not so sure. Hopefully, you know, I'm coming out the HDMI here. It's just using the onboard graphics. Should just actually go through some BIOS boots here. So let's see. I'm not getting a signal yet, but it doesn't mean it isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. Okay, success, it did turn itself off. It then turned back on again, and now I've got a message, new CPU installed. So it says FTMP PSP NB corrupted. So it's a worrying like message, but I think I've got a message, so it means the thing is working. And it's asking me to keep end, keep previous, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know whether I need to do anything now or just turn the thing off and just be happy with it the way it is. I'd quite like to see the BIOS though. So I don't know whether I should go ahead and plug in a keyboard and just press Y. Press the any key, I guess, is the message that I'm getting there. There we go, I pressed Y, and now it's launching into its BIOS. Great, things look normal. There's an AIO pump. Say with confidence that things look normal. Looks absolutely fine. So I'm just gonna now just turn it off. Okay, so I suppose that's the biggest sort of stress out the way. But now it's going to be just organizing it all in the case, and that's not going to be all that easy, is it? So let's go ahead and get everything open. PC Cooler sent me this one. And one thing that I've noticed that is very nice about this case is that all of the fans are already in and connected to a fan controller. So that is good news. So it was easy enough to get these sides off. They're just held on with very strong magnets. So it's just that one screw and then just very strong magnets. Now I think I'm right in saying that I'm going to need all 9 of these standoffs actually installed. I've got 9 holes, I think. So this is ATX, so it's going to be using the whole of that back plate. It's this bit that's tricky. It's the I/O shield. It's nice that it's on there already, but it's these cables down here as well for the fans. Thank you for cabling it in advance, but if those cables are in my way. Okay, so that was actually the first time it's been stressful. It's just rerouting some of those cables in there, which would have not been an issue at all if it was a smaller motherboard or whatever. So now it's all the front I/O needs to go through and be connected into the motherboard, so this will be fun. This is the bit I wasn't looking forward to. It looks like it's going to be quite long. So this bit is definitely not so much fun. We've got these tiny little cables I've got to plug into individual pins on here. So I've got power LED plus, power LED minus, and I've got power SW, which is the power button, I suppose, is it? So I'll start with the plus and minus LEDs. I don't know why these couldn't have been combined. And just generally, you know, I've done the audio cable there. I've got the LED stuff, the RGB headers, which is just needless fuss really, RGB, isn't it? It's just tricky to get your head around it all. Okay, yep, they've gone in. Don't follow this bit, but just read a manual. Certainly another really tricky bit here. Installing the cooler, balanced it in there, but I've got to go ahead and screw it in, I guess from the top, don't I? And I think just generally the mess of wires that I've now got, just a bit unbelievable, aren't they? It should just have two enders there, fine. So I think I'll just turn it around and sort of try and screw this in from the top and then screw the fans on underneath. Seems to be the thing to do. Okay, so difficult bit to do when it's just you. Just hanging the radiator in on there on top. Now the fan's in with these longer screws. Kind of feel like somebody's just thinking, gosh, why did you do it in that order? Let me know in the comments. I'm not really all that bothered about an aesthetic build, but you know, I would like it to be neat. But for me, I would, you know, just give me fewer cables and not bother with the RGB, I think. Okay, so I think we're getting there. And it's famous last words, really, wasn't it? The next thing is, of course, the power supply. Now, most of that's already sorted because I did it earlier, but I'll need to just add in a SATA power cable because I will be putting a SATA hard drive in. And I will need to put in a 12-volt cable for the graphics card when it gets here. Okay, so power supply in. Yeah, these are the chunky cables that are quite difficult. And the fan, what's the point? Obviously out of the case. I need to run 3 of these around the front. So this is the main power cable for the motherboard. No, 4, because these two 8 pins are the CPU power. And then the graphics card will be this one. No, it's PCIe 5, so that's fine. SATA drive ones I'll just leave in the base, because I don't need them just yet. It's heavy now. So the graphics card, these CPU ones. I think actually this makes a lot of sense why they've now got rear connecting motherboards. You're just looking for someone like Framework to figure this all out, aren't you? And just say, you know what? You can make the whole thing a lot more straightforward. That's 1. That's 2. Have we done it? Have we got most of the way there now? Is SATA data going to get round there? And these were with the motherboard case rather than with this case, so maybe I just need to buy longer ones. especially as one of them's at a right angle. I'll just leave that for now and then decide once I've got the GPU in there. And I've got very fast USB 4, so I could always just run it out to external drives and things like that. What's next? I think this is now just plug it in and check that it's going. And then obviously tidy cables. So a definite moment of truth then. Power on there. Power there. Fans are going to spin up. So now I just need to create an install disk from the install windows. I guess I'll put the cover on. The case fans aren't going. Radiator fan is going, but the case fans aren't spinning up, so. And there's an LED button there that isn't currently doing anything. Yeah, figured that out. It was that the LED and fan controller were SATA powered, so luckily I put a SATA power cable in there. There we are, we have LEDs. We have a computer that boots. It's my new PC. Awesome. Installation media is in. I don't see there's any issue here. What could it be? Of course, I'd get to this point and it just not work. So close. Well, I did have a little bit of a moment there, but it just turned out that I just needed to be patient. I had thought, because it wasn't the first time it had booted, that actually it would have been quicker the second time around, but it did just take its time. It did a restart and then it pinged up and it was ready to go. As I said to you at the start, I was expecting some moments where I wasn't quite sure, and that was one of them. So I see that kind of latches on like that. So I've got one more delivery coming tomorrow for this build. And I asked you guys what I should get in that delivery, and well, find out in the next part.